It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. Oh, man, I love it when guests are first-timers on the show. They hear the music and stuff, and they all laugh. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a new friend, Mr. Dae Bogan, who's a key figure at the Mechanical Licensing Collective, better known as the MLC, a sponsor at this year's Road Rally and last year's Road Rally, and the work they do is like God's work. They are looking out for you guys, collecting money that most people don't even know that they have sitting there, and that's why I titled today's show, Ignorance is Not Bliss for Musicians. And I got to let you guys in the audience know that I'm a little bit intimidated because Dae is a data nerd. And really smart on this stuff. And I flunked statistics when I was in high school. So I don't even know if I'm qualified to interview him. Also, our audio is going to be a little bit low today. Let me know in the chat room if it's, there's not much we can do. We've got Dae as high as we can go, and I brought me down so we would be at similar levels. So hopefully it sounds okay for you guys. Dae is traveling for work right now out of the country in an Airbnb, so we take what we can get settings-wise. So Dae is head of third-party partnerships at the MLC. He also... the DIRP, Distributor Unmatched Recordings Portal, which is a tool for distributors like TuneCore, CD Baby to find and claim royalties for unmatched recordings. He runs programs for DIY artists, that's you guys, focusing on copyright royalties, data management, using platforms like webinars to bring that info. He works on systems to match songs to recordings and data, helping to get the royalties to the right people, which again is you. So I've got a bunch of notes, and I do have some questions I'll ask later, but Dae, let's start out by having you explain what the MLC is and what it is that you do and who benefits from it.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure.
I've known of Taxi for many years, as we spoke before. So it's a pleasure to join you here. So the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, well, it really goes back to 2018. That is when the Music Modernization Act was passed. And the Music Modernization Act is a three-part piece of legislation that includes Title I, which is the Musical Works Modernization Act. This Title I is what established the new blanket licensing scheme that digital music services operate under in the United States. Prior to Title I, the MMA, there was just the compulsory mechanical license, which is basically a process for companies to receive the rights to use your songs in their services without directly having to contact you about that or directly having to license from you about that. That process has changed to be a blanket. So now companies must engage with the MLC to provide us with certain information to fulfill the requirements of Section 115 of the United States Copyright Act. And this is what the MMA did. It also established the concept of a mechanical licensing collective, and our organization was designated in 2019 by the United States Copyright Office to be the Mechanical Licensing Collective. We began building the MLC in 2020, and the blanket license that most digital services operate under in the United States went into effect on January 1st, 2021. And since then, it has now we now have this central place for songwriters, publishers, composers, lyricists, other CMOs to go and register your songs and to be accounted to and to be paid your digital audio mechanical royalties in the United States. So it starts with MMA of 2018, and that established us, and we kicked off operations on January 1st, 2021. So it's been now 5 years.
And explain what a blanket license is in this context. I know that many of my viewers know what a blanket license is when a TV network does a blanket, but explain what it is in the context of collecting mechanical royalties.
Sure. Well, before the blanket license went into effect on January 1st, 2021, the way that digital music services like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, SoundCloud, uh, Google, YouTube Music, the way that they license was under what was called the compulsory mechanical licensing scheme. And that did not require to engage directly with every songwriter to receive that license. But it still required a level of administration on an individual basis that was not fully fulfilled, to the tune of over $400 million in unclaimed royalties as a result of not being able to track down rights holders, songwriters, publishers, and so forth.
It's a lot
The
of money.
blanket license is a lot of money.
Yeah.
The blanket license basically said, well, instead of having to, instead of the individual companies being responsible for tracking down the individual copyright owners to submit what was called a notice of intent to obtain a compulsory mechanical license, instead you would operate under this blanket license, which blankets, basically, blanket meaning it covers all songs that are released in the United States.
All. You don't have to register it or anything. It's just all.
Well, the songs must be registered by the rights holder, but as far as the digital music services, they're no longer responsible for tracking down an individual songwriter to submit a notice of intent to obtain a compulsory mechanical license. That was the individual one by one scheme. Now it's a blanket situation. So all you have to do is just provide the information to us as far as monthly reporting, provide royalties to us, and then we have the responsibility of now working with the songwriters and publishers and getting you paid. It is still the responsibility of the songwriters to join the MLC, to register your songs, to get yourself paid.
And I want to say this up front. To the best of my knowledge, it doesn't cost anything to join the MLC, and it's just not that hard to sign up. Yet, like I said, ignorance is not bliss. Most people don't know that they should do this and could possibly have money sitting there.
A lot of people have money sitting there. Part of my role is creating strategic education and outreach initiatives to track down songwriters, independent songwriters. And we've been able to track down songwriters who we had over $100,000 in unclaimed royalties for. And we've been able to pay them out and get them connected to the system so that they're getting monthly payments. So you mentioned, it doesn't cost anything. It's free to join the MLC. Not only is it free to join MLC, we do not take a commission or any kind of admin fee. So 100% of the royalties that we collect on your behalf, we're able to pay those out to you.
So how do you guys get paid for doing that amazing work?
So the MLC's operating expenses are paid for by the DSPs, and that's in accordance with the Music Modernization Act. So the law basically states that the digital music services have to contribute to basically our annual budget.
Wow. I think you guys might be the only service out there in the history of the music industry that collects money, puts it in the pockets of musicians, and doesn't take 15 or 20% off the top for performing that task. It's amazing.
Exactly.
I want to know who negotiated that deal for you guys, because the next time I need a negotiator, that's the person I'm going to call.
Well, this is in the law. So this was negotiated between the various publishers and publisher organizations and songwriter groups and the DSP representatives. This is a part of the Music Modernization Act, and that's the way the drafters wanted it.
So a self-administered songwriter, composer, or lyricist. Is that somebody who creates music but hasn't signed with a production music library, hasn't signed with a regular publisher, and they're just operating on their own? In my case, it'd be like Michael Laskow Music Publishing. I'm self-administered.
Yeah, exactly. So there are 3 levels when it comes to publishing. First, when you first start writing songs, you are completely self-published and self-administered songwriter. meaning you don't have a publishing deal, so you're self-published, and you have not signed up with a publishing administrator, so you're also self-administered. So when you start writing songs, as long as you don't have any type of publishing or administration deal, you're considered a self-published and self-administered songwriter. The second level would be a songwriter who maintains the ownership of their copyright, so therefore you're self-published. However, you may hire a publishing administrator. That may be like a Song Trust or TuneCore Publishing or Centric or One Publishing or Cobalt, which co-signs. There's many different companies that provide publishing administration services. So you can be self-published but not self-administered when you hire a publishing administration company. And then the third level would be someone who is signed to a publishing deal, and they may not own their publishing at all, and they certainly do not administer the publishing since they don't own it. So those are sort of your levels.
Okay.
To be a member of the MLC, you must be both self-published and self-administered. So if you are self-published, meaning you own your copyrights, but you've hired Songtrust, for example, to be your administrator, then Songtrust is the member at MLC on behalf of your songs that you've assigned to Songtrust to administer.
So let me throw a hypothetical out. Let's say Taxi member Michael Laskow gets forwarded by Taxi, ends up in the hands of a production music library, and they say, we love what you're doing. Can you create 10 tension cues for us? And you do a deal with them. Let's say it's an exclusive deal. They get 100% of the publisher share, they get 100% of the master, and you as the writer, me as the writer in this case, would keep 100% of the writer's share. So that is not self-administered because they're taking care of it. They're doing the admin on it. And furthermore, many of the libraries now will take that stuff and put it out on Spotify or CD, use CD Baby or whatever to distribute it to Spotify and Apple Music, etc. So I couldn't join because I'm not self-administered. But what if I had 5 pieces of music that I hadn't signed to any libraries? Then I'm qualified?
Yeah, so you can join the MLC as long as you administer at least one song.
Okay. But obviously it's only going to collect on that one song, the stuff that you
Correct.
self-administer.
It'll just be that one. Exactly.
Okay. Well, a lot of people, another one of our sponsors for many, many years at the Road Rally was CD Baby. And I would say, if I had to guess, probably 40, 50, maybe even 60% of Taxi members at some point used CD Baby or TuneCore, whatever, to get their stuff out on Spotify, all the different streamers or DSPs. So that stuff preceded them doing deals with libraries. Let's assume for the sake of this argument that they didn't sign the stuff that they put out prior to getting a production music library deal. So that stuff they could collect on through the MLC. What happens if at some point that stuff that they put out on that CD does get picked up by a library and is now admin by the library because they've got 100% of the publisher share with me retaining 100% of the writer's share. So at that point, it no longer collects for them because it's not self-administered?
Yeah, so songs move in and out of administration all the time.
Oh,
and we pay out the royalties to the party, the payee that's supposed to receive the money at that given time. So if you had a song that was self-administered and then it gets picked up by a library and now the library is administering it, there's a process to be able to relinquish your control or your shares, and then for that new administrator to claim those shares and therefore receive the royalty flow for it, and vice versa. If you have a song that's in a library and a term has expired and the administration is transferring back to you as the writer, there's a process for that too, to have that publisher or that administrator or that library to relinquish their claims to the songs, and then those writers could potentially claim those shares again as a self-administered songwriter.
How responsible are the libraries or entities like them and the musicians as far as notifying you guys when things revert? I would imagine that's a horrible amount of chasing people down and people calling up, hey, this reverted 3 years ago. Well, you didn't tell us.
Well, we have a process. We have a conflict resolution process for those who may be in conflict. For example, let's say if there's four writers on a song and you each are claiming 30% of the song, so now it's 120% overclaim. So we have what's called an overclaim tool that allows those different parties to resolve those shares so that they can get paid. But we also have a tool called catalog transfer tool. So that if there's a transfer of catalog, if you are moving your stuff from one library to another library and that new library is taking over administration, there's a tool for that. So we have different tools inside of the member hub. So when you become a member of the MLC, you get access to what's called the member hub. The member hub holds all of our various tools, song registration tools, bulk registration tools, our matching tool to be able to search for unmatched versions of your song and to get paid out on that. There's the catalog transfer tool, overclaims tool. So there's different tools to help you administer your catalog because you're, again, self-administering.
Wow. It sounds like you guys have covered an enormous amount of ground to do what you do in just 4 short years. I mean, this is complex, big boy stuff you're talking about. The fact that you've done it, because when I watch how, well, for instance, how not very fast the PROs are moving in the face of AI music, just like changing everything in a very short amount of time. How many people work at the MLC? Do you have like a room full of programmers constantly building new
We do.
tools?
We do. We have a technology team. There's over 150, maybe even 170 employees at the MLC. I don't know the exact count, but our headquarters is in Nashville, and we have team members distributed. A number of our tech team is in the UK, and we have our support team in Nashville, our marketing team in Nashville. So we have our primary headquarters in Nashville, but we do have distribution of our organization.
I want to read off. I'm going to pluck some names out of this list that the MLC has sent audit notices to the following DSPs. I'd be here for a half an hour reading all these off, but I just want our viewing audience to know how incredibly thorough you are. This is actually, I think I got this probably 10 or 11 months ago, but Amazon Media Venture, Amazon.com Services, Apple, Artist Technology Group, doing businesses, Panther Music, Beatport, Bill Graham Archives, Choral Tracks, Deezer, Google, GrooveFox, iHeartMedia, M&M Media, Midwest Tape. Don't know what that one is. Sorry, I'm skipping a lot just because I don't want to be here all day. Music Choice, Napster, Naxos, Pandora, Piano Tracks LLC, Slacker, Smithsonian Institution Folkways Recordings. I used to actually know somebody that worked there like 45 years ago. Sonos, SoundCloud, Spotify, Tidal, Tribal, Ultimate Guitar, GuitarBackingTrack.com. That's cool. Anyway, you guys get the idea. They're very thorough, and I'm sure this list has grown in leaps and bounds since the 10 or 11 months ago that I got it. Is it timely for me to bring up those graphics now? And do you want to talk everybody through them?
Sure. It's important for creators to understand where do we fit in the digital music royalty landscape, because the MLC is a new organization. Like I said, we've been in operations for 5 years. We have received reporting of over $4.1 billion in mechanical royalties within those 5 years. We've paid out already over $3 billion in royalties since April 2021. And we continue to pay out tens of millions of dollars every month. to songwriters and publishers and CMOs around the world. But it's important to understand kind of where we fit in our digital music landscape. So we do have a graphic that we like to use for presentations that shows the different rights at play, the different royalties, and the different organizations and who's responsible for what. So we can go ahead and throw that
All
up.
right, it's going to block out our faces because in order for me to get it big enough that people could read it, we're going to be hiding behind it. Should I bring up the blue one first or the red, orange one?
Yes, let's start with the blue one.
Okay. And there we go.
All right, so what we're looking at here is half of a diagram that is on our website. You can go to mlc.com, then go to resources and then songwriters to find what's called the digital music royalties landscape. What this is showing you are two flows of royalties. Each column represents a different royalty. The first one, the gray column, are performance royalties. These royalties are earned when you have public performance rights being licensed by PROs such as ASCAP, BMI, CSEC, GMR, and Alltrack. So PROs license your public performance rights to music users, and they receive performance royalties. Those royalties are then distributed in two buckets, 50% to the publisher's share and 50% to the writer's share. And within those buckets, you have the parties that receive those monies. So if you're a writer, songwriter, you'll receive from the writer's share. And if you're a publisher or a self-administered songwriter, you'll receive from the publisher's share. Then we look to the right, we have the next, the blue column, and this is mechanical royalties, specifically blanket mechanical royalties in accordance with the Music Modernization Act of 2018. This is for the reproduction and distribution rights in your musical works. These royalties are paid to the MLC from all the DSPs that operate under the blanket license. And then we distribute these royalties based on the mechanical shares that have been registered to us. So it's not a 50-50 publisher-writer situation. This pie can be split up in any way as long as it totals 100%. But the payments go out to parties such as songwriters, publishers, administrators, and CMOs. Both of these columns, at the very top, you'll see a dark blue bar that's titled songs/musical works. And this is important because both of these flow of royalties sit under the musical work copyright, which is a separate copyright from the sound recording. So the musical work is your lyrics, your notation, and your melodies. That makes up a composition or a musical work copyright, and the two types of royalties that flows from that copyright in the digital music space are performance royalties and mechanical royalties. Now we're going to move over to the second copyright, which is the sound recording. So you can go ahead and change out the graphic. Okay, so this graphic, you can see here that it says sound recordings, and there's two columns again, the red column and the orange column. The red column is for the share of revenue for the reproduction and distribution rights in a sound recording. This means a share of the DSP revenue that is distributed that is sent to music distributors and aggregators, such as your CD Baby and TuneCore and DistroKid and record labels, who then share that with their labels and artist partners. If you're a self-release artist, you get paid directly from your distributor. If you're an artist or producer signed to a record label, you get paid from the record label in accordance with your recording contract and any type of advances or recoupment. So that's the what we call master revenue, right, for the master side. The orange column is the digital performance rights royalties. These are royalties that are administered by Sound Exchange. This is for the right to digitally perform sound recordings. Sound recordings in the United States does not have a general public performance right, which we also call neighboring rights. It has a digital performance rights, which is for digital platforms such as radio, like iHeartRadio or Pandora Radio, internet like Music Choice, satellite like SiriusXM. Those are digital performance platforms. These royalties are distributed through sound exchange in three different buckets. The first one is 50% to the label, which is called the label share or the sound recording copyright owner share. Then there's 45% to the featured artist, which is the main artist on the track. And then there's another organization that receives 5% of the royalties. Those royalties are paid to what's called the non-featured artist share. These are session musicians and background vocalists on the track. These royalties flow through the AFM and SAG-AFTRA Intellectual Property Rights Distribution Fund. And you have to go to that separate organization, which is separate from Sound Exchange, if you're a session musician or a background vocalist, to be able to collect your share of digital performance royalties. So as you can see, we went over 4 different flows of royalties. There's really a fifth if you include the non-featured artist share from the AFM SAG-AFTRA fund. But these 4 or 5 flows of royalties make up the U.S. digital music royalty landscape. The MLC, we're in one column, which was column 2. So we're not responsible for these other types of royalties, but you as a performer are responsible for positioning yourself with each of these organizations to properly collect your share of these different royalties. There's a part of this diagram that's not visible on the screen. It's a legend. That legend identifies which of these royalties are earned based on the type of usage. So the first column was icon number 1. The second column is icon number 2. The third column here is icon number 3, the red one, and the fourth one is the orange one. The legend will tell you, for example, an interactive streaming platform such as a Spotify or Apple Music, that is an interactive streaming platform. They pay royalties that includes the first column, which is public performance royalties for the musical work.
Should I go back to the blue diagram for this?
Sure. Well, I'm going to mention all 4, so if you can, I don't know if you can put both up or not.
No.
Okay. Well, don't worry about it because it will be the same effect. But the first column was the performance royalties. The second was mechanical royalties. And then the third would be the reproduction and distribution rights for sound recordings. Those are the 3 royalty streams for an interactive streaming service. There is no digital performance royalties for interactive streaming services. For non-interactive streaming services, which are radio-like experiences like Pandora or SiriusXM or iHeartRadio or Slacker Radio.
So in other words, the listener is not choosing what they hear. It just comes at them and they're sitting there. So
right, you may be able to choose the station or the genre theme, but you can't select individual tracks.
Okay.
So for those types of services, the royalties that they pay would be from column 1, which was the public performance royalties, and column 4, which is the digital performance royalties. And the last one would be your download stores, such as iTunes or Amazon MP3. They do not pay a public performance royalty, so no column 1, but they do pay a mechanical royalty, so column 2. And a master share royalty, which is column 3, but not a digital performance royalty, which is column 4. So the legend breaks down the different types of usage. The different type of use is going to dictate which columns or which flows of royalties the DSPs or the radio stores or whatever, what they have to pay out based on the law.
It's too complicated. No fault of yours or the MLCs, but I was speaking on behalf of my members because I've known them so well for 30 plus years. Musicians.
Well, this cheat guide sort of, think of this diagram as sort of your cheat sheet when you're thinking about a service and questioning whether you've been paid or not. You kind of reference the guide and say, okay, well, I know my music was on this platform. Is this platform a non-interactive service or is it an interactive service? Is it, what is it? And then based on that, you're supposed to know which royalties you're supposed to receive.
I think a lot of musicians have a sense that, hey, my job is to make great music. And everybody wishes they had a manager to take care of this stuff for them because this is complex. I mean, it's a very broad and deep landscape of all these different ways to collect money. And most musicians, I'm terrible at filling out forms. I'm not terrible. I'm good at it. I just hate to do it. So I think a lot of people have not gotten a lot of their own income because of the complexity of this. I wish, I'm speaking on behalf of all independent musicians right here when I say this, I wish there was a service that would get you signed up for all the appropriate stuff because it's just a lot. I mean, most people are aware of what a mechanical royalty is back in the days of stamping out records. And the Harry Fox agency collected that money. And I do have a question. Now that you guys exist, does Harry Fox still, how did they fit into this picture?
Yeah, so the Harry Fox still operates in the mechanical world. And in fact, they're one of our partner organizations. But their role is specifically for what's called voluntary mechanical licenses, as opposed to the blanket mechanical. We handle the blanket. So any service that wants to operate under the blanket license have to work with MLC. But if you are a startup and you want to do a direct license with publishers for a bundle of rights, such as sync plus performance plus mechanical or lyrics or whatever, you bundle all that into a contract, and services like Harry Fox and Music Reports, they facilitate these companies getting publishers and to sign up for these opportunities. So they handle the administration, often handle the administration of those contracts, which include voluntary direct mechanical licenses. So that's separate from blanket mechanical licenses.
And how does all this work internationally?
Well, it's more complicated internationally.
I know. That's why I'm asking. It's like I'm look, I'm college educated. Most people would say maybe I'm a little below the line for being considered high, like a really smart person, but yeah, reasonably smart. And it's blowing my mind how complex this is. And it blows my mind even more that you're able to articulate it so incredibly well. So is the MLC constantly in a state of like lobbying and trying to get laws changed and trying to work with all the other organizations and companies and just entities that you must work with? No wonder your staff is pretty large. You must have people that are just on the phone and sending emails all day, every day, because you're relatively young trying to get all this stuff worked out.
Well, the MLC, we're actually not a advocacy organization, so we do not lobby anything. We have to administer the Music Monetization Act, the blanket license in accordance with the act. So if there's any changes, that is done at the congressional level or the United States Copyright Office that goes through rulemaking proceedings where publishers and DSPs and songwriters can contribute to the rulemaking proceedings. But the MLC itself, we're not a lobby organization, so we do not advocate for any particular amendments or laws or provisions that to amend, the copyright laws or the MMA. But we do a lot of work with outreach and trying to work with CMOs in different countries to get them signed up, to get their songwriters, to get their repertoire registered in our system, so we can pay those CMOs to then pay their songwriters. We do a lot of outreach and initiatives within the U.S., a lot of events to reach out and try to connect with songwriters within the U.S. and composers and music publishers and music producers. We do lots of events throughout the year. We do webinars and conferences. So we have a lot of activity going on throughout the year to get the word out about the MLC. We began making payments in April 2021. Since January 21, we've received over $4.1 billion in reporting to us. We've collected over $3.8 billion in royalties, and we've paid out over $3.1 billion in royalties. So that is our primary mission, which is to to track down songwriters, to pay out our members, to get people, to encourage them to use our tools, to administer their catalog, register their songs, claim their shares. So that's what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys come to the road rally, and the more I learn about what you do and understand it a little better each time I talk to you. Last year we had Serona Elton on, who I love. She's a pistol. She's also from my alma mater, the University of Miami, so I loved her even more. But each time I begin to understand it a little bit more, and people in the chat room are all going, wow, this is really complicated, but he's doing such a great job of explaining it. So thumbs up on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I'm looking down my list of questions, see if there's anything that you haven't answered already. Oh, here's one from someone who's not very tech savvy or finds this process intimidating. How does the MLC support them? I mean, you've already discussed the webinars and going to
Well,
conferences and stuff.
so there's different ways that we support our members and prospective members. So first of all, we have a support team, a dedicated support team that are available Monday through Friday. And you can call them, you can chat with them inside the member hub. You can send an email if you have issues, and you'll get someone to support your issue. So we do have human support for our members. We also have a help center. We have a YouTube channel with dozens of videos about our different tools, about our royalties processing timelines, about our royalty statements, how to read them. We have webinars throughout the month where members can join webinars to learn about a particular topic, to see a demo of our tools. And then, like I said, we're out in the marketplace all the time. We're out, at different events. We host our own events, and we also partner with organizations to have a presence at their events so we can answer questions from our members and also answer questions of prospective members. And in addition to that, we have a lot of companies that provide information about the MLC's data sets. We have a data program. We have a number of data programs that allow companies to basically receive all of our data and then provide their own tools and resources to their customers. And some of these companies are helping customers identify where there's discrepancies between their catalog and what we have at MLC. It's helping them track down missing royalties. It's helping them to identify where a song has not been matched or paid out. So there's a lot of companies sort of supplementing our efforts by using our data programs to have access to our data.
It's amazing all the stuff you're doing. We live in a world where you can barely get a human being. We pride ourselves at Taxi. You will always get a human being on the phone, and it really makes a difference. My wife and I were going over a financial thing with Schwab over the weekend, and we actually got a live human being sitting in a call center, maybe working from home in Orlando, and he was incredibly helpful. When we hung up, I said to my wife, wow, what a difference it makes to get a human. So it's great that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
What about the money that isn't collected? Because, well, first of all, let's talk about the matching and then go into the money that things that never get matched and never generate any revenue back to the person who should be getting it. So your database talks to the databases of all these different entities. Is it compulsory for them to supply that data on a daily, weekly, monthly, or annual basis? What's the timeline from, let's say, I don't know, Apple Music? You're doing a match with Apple Music. How often does that happen? How long does it take? And then how long does it take for the funds to get distributed?
Okay, so we have what we call our end-to-end process. It's a 75-day process. It starts with the close of a calendar month. So a usage month is, for example, let's say we're now in December. So at the end of December, that would be the December 31st would be the end of this December usage month.
Okay.
The way our process works is at the close of a month, 10 days later, after the close of the month, we take a snapshot of our entire database in terms of what are all the songs that have been registered, what are the splits that have been claimed, who are the companies claiming those shares. So that becomes a snapshot on the 10th day. And then from that snapshot, we process the royalties that we receive. Well, first we'll receive usage reports from all the different DSPs every month. So everyone that had usage in December will deliver their usage reports to us. We then match those usage reports to the songs that have already been registered in our system so that we have a match. So here's a track, here's a recording that's being reported to us from Spotify. We match that recording to a song that has been registered, and then the royalties associated with that usage is then paid out to the parties in accordance with the shares that they've registered. So this is a 75-day process, and we have these processes happening overlapping, right? Because for end of December, January 1st until April 15th is that 75-day cycle. But at the end of January begins another 75-day cycle. So in the month of February, we have processing happening for the month of December, and we have processing beginning for the month of January. And by the time we get to March, we have now three, right? We have processing that's coming to an end for the month of December, processing that's towards the middle in January, that's in January, and processing that just began for February, all in the month of March, right? So every month there's three different cycles happening at the same time. And that's the way we're able to pay out every single month. So we make royalty distributions every month around the 14th or the 15th, depending on if it's a weekend. So we have 12 royalty distributions a year. Some organizations only have 4 or 2. We have 12 because we have monthly payments, because we have overlapping cycles of processing.
I've got to say, if you call any of the PROs, and I mean any of the PROs, and ask them, how do you determine what I get paid for a performance? They'll change the subject or tell you, well, there's a formula. Well, what's the formula? I want to know. I'm a member of this organization. Nobody will tell you what the formula is. I am so completely impressed with the MLC and how incredibly well articulated all this is from everybody I've met. Jane Bushmaster, who spoke at the Red Rally both years, Serona Elton, and now you. Either you guys hire incredibly smart people. Well, obviously you hire incredibly smart people. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And how long does it take somebody a new person who comes on board as a staff person? It's got to take them like 6 months to a year to be able to articulate.
It takes some time. It takes time. We have very specialized departments that are handling very specialized segments of the work, from our member services team to our publisher services team to our DSP relations team, my team, which is third-party partnerships. We're dealing with companies around the world that are using our data, talking about their various use cases of how they use our data, how it's impacting songwriters and publishers. We have Serona with our educational partnerships and working with universities and educating educators and students. And we have our Indy Chala, who's in UK, who's handling our international relations and liaisoning with over 100 CMOs and PROs around the world. So we have lots of different, and that doesn't even include our technology team, which actually builds these tools. So we have a lot of people in our support team that supports our members. So it's a lot of different specialized functions that are working together in this sort of cohesive ecosystem to ultimately make sure that every month we're able to pay our members on time.
I would imagine that every one of those people, even though they're in their own little box and specialized in the tasks that they perform, they still have to understand the big picture. Otherwise, their box is kind of worthless. So, wow. I want to go to Nashville and hug everybody that works at the MLC.
Come on down.
Yeah, you guys are doing an incredible job. What about money that's never matched and not collected, not distributed? Does that just go off into the ether?
Yeah, so there's two types of money that doesn't go out. There's what's called unclaimed royalties, and then there's unmatched royalties. And I'm going to walk you through each of these.
Okay.
The unclaimed royalties means the song has been registered, but only a portion of it has been registered, meaning a couple of writers have registered their shares, but there's still one or more writers that have not yet claimed their share. So let's say you and I wrote a song together and you go out and you register with MLC. I have not yet joined the MLC. So only 50% of the song would be registered. The other 50% is not registered. It's not claimed. So that's considered unclaimed royalties. We know the song exists, but we don't know who the other writers are, or the publishers or administrators. They're the ones that do the claiming. So that's called unclaimed royalties. Then there is unmatched royalties. Unmatched royalties means these are royalties being reported to us by digital services, but we're unable to match those royalties to a song in our database. And that could be because the song has never been registered before, or it's the registration and the recording information is not matching. So there's an issue. Metadata is the issue there. Maybe some song titles are different, or artist names are wrong, or whatever it could be. Right? There's metadata issues contribute to this inability to match. So those are the two primary buckets of blanket royalties that are accruing. You have unmatched and unclaimed. Now, there's also this other bucket of royalties, what we call historical royalties. These are the royalties that accrued in the entire digital music ecosystem before the MLC existed. And
That
these
had to be
royalties,
easily, 10, 15 years worth of stuff.
it was 13 years. So from 2007 through December 31st, 2020. So that 13-year period, royalties had accrued to the tune of over $400 million. These were all unclaimed and unmatched historical royalties that were sitting in siloed funds across all the DSPs. In February 2021, in accordance with the Music Modernization Act, all of the DSPs had to transfer those monies to the MLC. So we received in the $400+ million. Then we also received all of the data that the DSPs had related to that money. And we had spent, we spent a lot of time sifting through this data, trying to match it to what we have, trying to encourage publishers and CMOs to come in and go through our data quality initiative, which we kicked off in 2021 to get people to check their catalogs against this data set. So far, we've paid out over 57% of that historical fund that is separate from the unmatched and unclaimed funds of the current blanket license. So that is a third and separate set of monies that if you are a songwriter and you've never joined MLC, when you join the MLC and you begin to register songs, we're going to check all of those different funds to see if you have money in there. So at this moment, we go back to 2007, which is 18 years. So you could sign up today and could potentially have up to 18 years worth of royalties that have been accruing. And we have that happen every day. We have songwriters joining all the time who are getting paid tens of thousands of dollars. We had one case last year with one songwriter I found in January, February of last year. And by May, he got his first distribution. It was $125,000. And then because we pay out every month, then he continued to receive anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 per month for the current royalties.
I am so astonished. I'm watching people in the chat room going, the MLC is amazing. I mean, they're like just fawning all over you guys. So I'm that being considered, I'm just astonished that more people aren't talking about this because it's, you couldn't possibly think there's some like, scamming us or anything about it. I mean, clearly not that.
I mean, when we first came out, you would be surprised when we first started doing code outreach
Yeah.
to songwriters via any way that we could, any way we could find them, whether it was through contacts in the industry, social media, email blasts, email campaigns, blog posts, social media posts. There were a lot of people that, this sounded like a scam. They had never heard of the Music Modernization Act, let alone the MLC. When we first, and also, we were created during the pandemic. So it was obviously lots of distractions, and also other real scams that were happening during the pandemic. So it was not easy in the beginning. Now it's so much easier. There's still lots of songwriters who've never heard of us, but when you Google us, there's enough legitimate information out there to help the cause.
Well, as you and I were talking about before we went live on camera, you said, you've been aware of Taxi for a very long time. And of course, back in the early days, there are people accusing us of being a scam. And it breaks my heart on a pretty much daily basis that there's so much evidence to the contrary out there about Taxi. And you guys, I mean, are dealing in numbers that I'll never, ever see in my lifetime. So I would imagine that, ignorance is not bliss, because there are people that hear something, they don't understand it, they don't know enough about it, and just make an offhanded comment in a chat room somewhere, on a forum, on social media, and people, because they haven't done their homework and don't understand it well, tend to believe that little lie or that little offhanded comment, that might not have even been said in malice, more out of ignorance. And wow, I literally want to quit my job and come and work with you guys, because you're doing the Lord's work over there. Pretty impressive. How many musicians have been smart enough to sign, or how many songwriters have signed up?
So we have, yes, I can disclose. We have over 70,000 members. Of that 70,000 members, a little over 108 or 10 are CMOs in other countries who represents, tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of other songwriters around the world, foreign songwriters. Then we have, thousands of publishers and administrators and estates and other types of companies that represent songwriters. And then the rest are individuals, self-administered songwriters. And these individuals are in the systems, they're registering their songs, they're getting paid. And for some people, we're paying their rent every month because it's a monthly check, it's a monthly distribution. So if you're getting streams on a monthly basis and downloads, then you're getting monthly income. And that, it's nice to be able to get that direct deposit every month on the 15th.
This might be out of your... might not be something you're allowed to talk about or something you don't know about, but I assume the IRS would love it if I were getting a check, let's say every month for $2,000 or $3,000. That's obviously income, and I would have to pay income tax on that. What if you are of my generation and you've got songs that date back to the 70s, and you're going back to I didn't write it down, but whatever term you use for
2007.
2007. Okay, so that's still 18 years ago.
18 years. Yeah.
Do people have to amend their tax returns because was the income earned in the year
And I mean, I can't. The MLC cannot give you tax advice, but that being said, generally, I think most artists file taxes on a cash basis. So it's a calendar year, what you earned in the calendar year, as opposed to the value of a song 10 years ago. So most of us, we file our tax returns based on the income that was actually received in a particular year. It's not earned until it's received.
Okay.
It accrues, but it's earned kind of when it's received. That's kind of general, my personal opinion on that.
Right. Yeah. Not going to hang you out to dry with the IRS. Trust me. Nobody should have to go down that road. When the money sits in silos, wherever the silos may be, does it earn interest, and does the interest accrue and go with the person whose money is sitting in the silo? Let's say, in 2009, I've got $1,000 sitting in the silo since 2009. Is there any of that? I mean, nobody's got a silo filled with dollars or whatever form of money. without it earning interest. It's called the float, and
Mhm.
so who gets the float in this equation? Because somebody's going to ask that question.
The members do. So is actually a part of the Music Modernization Act. The Music Modernization Act requires that you know these funds, these unpaid monies, are earning interest, and that interest goes to the members. So there's been lots of cases with songwriters that I personally have sort of shepherded into the MLC, and they get their first distribution, and you'll see a line item for how much you accrue, but also a box for interest. So there's an actual line item for the interest on top of that you've earned. So it's almost like a savings account that you don't know exists. For someone who doesn't know we exist, it's almost just like a savings account that you don't know exists.
And is there a time period that they have to act on this, or is there any point at which they blew their window of opportunity if they didn't act?
Yes. So there, in the music industry in general, there are what's called statute of limitations. And every company has a different statute of limitations. Some companies will say, well, if you don't collect it in 3 years, you're going to lose it.
Forfeit. Yeah.
That's the forfeit. The Music Modernization Act states that the MLC must hold those funds for a minimum of 3 years. And during that time, we will exhaust all efforts to try to find these rights holders and get them to sign up and collect their money. That being said, we've that first 3 year minimum threshold came up in 2004. So since we began operations January 1st, 2021, 3 years later was January 1st, 2024. We're now going into January 1st, 2026, 2 years later, and we still have not, forfeited any royalties. So you can still come and collect your royalties beyond that minimum threshold.
I'm scanning for more questions. That's good to know. The whole time you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, I've got to get Dae in front of an audience at the Road Rally. I've never seen Jane's presentation because I'm always on stage moderating panels in the ballroom. While she's upstairs in the breakouts doing her thing. But I really want to help you guys spread the word on this, because I think it's just absolutely silly that everybody isn't talking about this, and there's so many people out there that have money sitting there and they're not doing anything about it. So I want to talk after the first of the year with with you and whoever, I can't remember now, the person who arranged for you guys to be a sponsor of the Road Rally, and see if we can do something.
Ellen, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Kayla and Ellen. They run
Okay,
the
yeah,
marketing
Kayla,
department.
I remember her name. I want to talk to them and see if we can do a thing on the main stage in the grand ballroom, and I'll give it a huge push to try and get that ballroom filled up, because when I see Jane after she does her thing, when she's on her way out of the building or something, and she'll say, yeah, it was a really good crowd, we had like 62 people in there. It's like, no, we need 620 people in there. And the good news about Taxi members, I think we've got the strongest, most active community of musicians anywhere. It all happened organically. People in the chat room, they've all become friends. The people on our forum have become friends. They collaborate on music from all over the world, and they come together at the Road Rally. People that have been friends for 3 years online, and now they're hugging each other for the first time at the Road Rally. So I think that our people are very well qualified to get the word out to their fellow musicians who may not be part of the taxi ecosystem, but we're a good nucleus for getting the word out. So, yeah, let's, you, me, Kayla, Jane, talk about doing something bigger at the rally next year. Are there any aspects of the MLC that I haven't asked questions about, or you haven't had a chance to explain that you think
Yeah, there's
we've missed?
a couple of things. Yeah, there's a couple of things that songwriters should know. First of all, the MLC, we are U.S. based organizations, and we only collect royalties for usage in the United States, which means we do not collect your mechanical royalties from other countries. If you become a member of the MLC, you'll get paid for your U.S. streams and downloads, but you will still need to have some type of partner to collect your ex-US downloads and streams. That's the difference between us and a PRO. For example, if you're a member of ASCAP or BMI, ASCAP and BMI have global reciprocal agreements, so CCSEC as well, global reciprocal agreements with other PROs to be able to transfer data and royalties to each other to pay their members. We do not have that. We have a unilateral agreements. So we do not receive royalties from other countries. We do pay other countries. We pay other MROs in other countries to pay their songwriters in their country, but we do not receive royalties from other countries. So you would still need.
That seems unbalanced.
That's the law.
Wow.
So that's the Music Monetization Act. So it's not a decision really at the MLC level. It's within the law. Has the law have to change for it to be another way? That's one thing to know. The second thing to know is, as I mentioned earlier, there is no fee to join MLC, and we do not take an admin commission on your royalty. So 100% of what you earn is what you get paid. We pay out on a monthly basis around the 15th of every month. And if you are a songwriter that's tuning in from outside the U.S., if you decide to join MLC directly, it depends on your country. There could be a tax withholding depending on your country. We would know that once you fill out your what's called a W-8 bin tax form. What else to know? If you are a self-administered songwriter and you own your own publishing entity, you can join MLC as your publishing entity and represent yourself as a writer. So you don't have to have a third-party publisher on your account at all. It can just be your publishing entity. If you don't have a publishing entity at all, let's say you're a lyricist and you don't have a publishing entity, you can join as an individual, as a person, and get paid that way. So you have two ways of joining, either as your business entity or as an individual.
But not both.
Well, no, there wouldn't be a both. You will always be named as the writer, but only one party is receiving the royalties. Okay. Because like I mentioned before, we don't split royalties between a publisher and a writer like a PRO. We just have what's called mechanical shares. So your mechanical shares are controlled by you or your entity. There's no separation of that.
It's funny, before you mentioned that sometimes there are multiple writers on songs, which is almost the rule and not so much the exception anymore, certainly with big hits that make it to the radio. You go to an award show and they present the award, there's like 13 people involved with making that record on stage. Mm. So what blows my mind is that, let's say there are 4 writers and 2 of them have signed up for the MLC and the other 2 don't. It's like, how can those first 2 that joined and are getting monthly distributions not be telling the other 2 writers, like, dude,
it happens all the time.
I can't see. This is what I'm talking about. Musicians, I shouldn't bag on musicians. Creative people in general, in my estimation, having been in the industry now for 50, that's 50 years, I've worked every day of my adult life with creative people, and most don't have good business sense or a sense of responsibility to take care of the businessy things. So that blows my mind that so many people where 2 of the writers are collecting what is due and waiting for them and the other 2 are not. I don't know how to fix that, but boy, when I come up with the formula to put that in a pill, I'm going to make some serious money, because
it's common.
It breaks my heart. It's like, I wrote an article years ago that was in Electronic Musician or Music Connection, and it was called The Musician Middle Class. I have been the biggest advocate that, look, not everybody's going to be a rock star, get the private jet, the briefcase full of $100 bills, but for somebody that's worked their whole life to develop their talent, their skill set, and their chops, they should be able to earn not just a living wage, but what would be comparable, in other jobs, because they didn't just, it took time. It's like becoming a pro golfer or something. And the fact that part of that, journey that they took to get there didn't involve educating themselves on things like this where the money is waiting for them. They've earned that money already. Anyway, and get off that little soapbox for a minute. I want to go into something. Day laughed when I told him I wanted to talk about this today. But when I was stalking him before doing a little research before the show, I read a thing. I didn't have time to watch the video, but I read a thing where he's talking about infinite licensing, and parenthetically, that's IL, will be the most effective and fair system of music rights licensing and remuneration in the Gen AI music era. I believe we will see clear elements of it by 2030. So AI is a big topic with all musicians every day now, it seems. It's moving ahead at an incredible pace. And one of the things I was thinking about a week or so ago, when I knew you were going to be on the show, I thought, wow, how can we frame this within the context of AI? Because it gets so complicated. Now that the Copyright Office says, yeah, we'll register a copyright if it's substantially created by a human. The PROs, yeah, we'll let you register it if it's substantially created by a human. And I understand from the PRO's perspective, the more songs registered, the more money they can collect. Tell us what infinite, and brace yourselves, guys, in the chat room and viewers that are going to see this on YouTube in the archive. If you thought everything else today is going to make your head explode, infinite licensing may do the same. But hang in there and listen, because Dae is a really smart man, and you're the first person I've seen talking about this. So I want to know more. Please explain.
Yeah, I'm probably the first person because I believe I coined the term infinite licensing.
Well, there you
I've
go.
been talking about I've been talking about this theoretical licensing schema for a number of years now with other technologists in the music licensing and rights administration space. Let me go back many years and say that in 2018, I put together a lecture called Music 2020, the next era of innovation in the music industry, where I identified various technologies that were in development and examples of those technologies, current tech startups that were working on projects with these technologies. And I sort of hypothesized that these technologies would have a significant impact on the music industry in the 2020s. This was 2018 when I wrote this, but it was 2015, 2016, 2017 when I had been working with these type of startups as a mentor through various accelerators and advisor to founders. I was also the creator and professor of the music industry entrepreneurship and innovation course at UCLA, and the first innovation fellow at the UCLA Center for Music Innovation. So I've been in this space looking at technology, innovation, the future of music, the future of business and entrepreneurship within the music industry in this academic context for many years. So that's to say that in 2018, I put together this lecture and I went to different universities. I talked about here are the technologies that I thought were going to have an impact in the music industry. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and tokenization. So those are the technologies that I identified. And I gave the presentation also at the Music Biz conference in 2019, right before the pandemic. And then we kind of fast forward into the 2020s, we saw the NFTs kind of took off. That was representation of tokenization that I mentioned. We saw cryptocurrency take off with various initial coin offerings that are music industry related, whether artists had ICOs or there were music generated coins. There were songs and investment and finance firms that kind of popped up to expand the space of investing in songs or the ability to get a share of a song or a share of a royalty. So all of these things I'd been seeing kind of bubbling up. But the AI thing, I was primarily just talking about AI as a tool at the time. But as we have now seen over the last 5 years, it has gone beyond that for some creators, and it's becoming not just a tool, but really the product. So now I'm looking at, as a licensing expert and a music rights expert, I'm looking at how, and also I'm a music creator rights advocate. I'm kind of self-proclaimed music creator rights advocate. What it means for me to be a music creator rights advocate is not to necessarily dismiss any new technology or innovation that makes it difficult to be a creator, or makes it more challenging to be a creator, but rather to understand how to respect creators' rights and entitlement to royalties and copyright ownership within the context of this new innovation. We're not going to stop innovation,
Right.
but what we can do and should do is make sure that people are being properly credited, properly valued, and properly paid. What a lot of companies are looking at now that we're trying to legitimize AI models is the idea of permission. An artist giving permission, like with some of the new deals that have been in the press, the ability for artists to opt in to a
Allow
large
their
language
data be
model,
scraped.
to opt in as opposed to opt out, because opt outs are never in the best interest of an artist. An opt in allows you to be proactive, and opt out is passive, and you can miss an opportunity to opt out of something. So the opt-in is good in a sense that it gives some control, some permissions to the creator. But what it doesn't do is properly value the music of that creator so that they are paid remuneration, right? Royalties that are that commiserates with their career, their talent, their work, their catalog. So the idea of infinite licensing that I've been sort of developing is a licensing scheme that is a dynamic real-time licensing process that uses both AI and potentially blockchain to create this real-time licensing negotiation, but that is machine to machine as opposed to human to machine. That will require the system to take in way more inputs of information than a standardized licensing situation. For example, if 5 of us were songwriters and we all wanted to allow our music to be used in an LLM that was then going to be used to create generative AI music, but if I'm a multi-Grammy award-winning songwriter with an ASCAP Songwriter Award and my music synced to a big Disney film, and an artist is currently touring around the world, my current value is higher than it was when I opted into the deal. Artists' values change over time, and the goal is for your value to increase over time. We don't have the ability right now in current licensing models. Once you sign a contract that says you get a share of a revenue pool, you cannot renegotiate how big your share is based on your individual value. It's just not feasible because it's all sort of human done. But if a machine could take into account all these different factors about your value at any given time, and then set a royalty rate for that particular transaction at that particular time, your royalties are going to fluctuate. But the goal is for it to be fluctuating with that trends up as your career trends up, because your value increases. So infinite licensing is this idea that there's this infinite combination of licensing inputs that will have to be taken into account to come up with a more accurate and fair commercial value of the use of your music at the time of that transaction. So if I'm an end user using somebody's system and I'm going to put in a prompt, I want a song that sounds like Dae in a style of country with this BPM. It's now the system can, in that moment, understand how is that song going to be used. It's going to be used for commercial distribution. It's going to be used to be pitched to film and TV. Are you going to go out and make a music video? So I want to know how you're going to use it. But then I also want to know the value of the different artists that are represented in the repertoire that is making up the output here for this generative AI. My value may change because if it can ingest Billboard charts, if it can ingest Grammy nominations, if it can ingest tour schedules, if it can ingest merch rates, if it can ingest all these different factors, now it has more input about you as an individual artist.
Even data points like social media mentions.
Social media, so your Spotify streams, playlisting, everything. Wow. The goal is pile it all in. because that is the true value of an artist. It's not only did you write a nice sounding song, did people listen to it and cry? You know, those could be yeses, and you still haven't earned a Grammy, and you still haven't done a world tour, you still haven't had a sync to a film. But once you start adding these elements of career accomplishment, your value of that source material has increased. And only infinite licensing, which can in real time do an analysis of all these inputs, all these different inputs, and determine, okay, their value at this time for this transaction is now this. That is a much more fair way of valuing an individual creator and to getting them paid, as opposed to a opt-in to a pool where everyone is flatlined to the equal value. When your contribution to the LLM may have influenced the hook on the generative AI output, and that hook is what's going to get it radio play and then charted on Billboard. Now you deserve more value, just as you would if you were going to a studio and you're writing with 3 songwriters and you're doing a split sheet. Okay, this one's a Grammy Award-winning songwriter, and I'm a baby songwriter who A&R just brought me in. I'm going to lean off of the popularity of this bigger songwriter. He's probably going to get a little bit more of the splits. That's how we currently do it, but we don't do it that way in the technology world. It's a flat-lined thing. So infinite licensing is this real-time, infinite combination of licensing terms that's going to have to take in lots of different sources. And the blockchain part of it is that the blockchain is where we can store the information about different rights holders, and it's very complicated. I can't get all into it, but you'd have to have API feeds that is feeding into the system the data, the real-time data, so that the system can analyze. Okay, on this date, December 8th, at this time, the value of this artist that whose music is being sampled in this generative AI LLM that's going to create this this output is this, versus what it was 2 days ago, and versus what another artist might be in 2 days prior, in 2 days time. So infinite licensing is complex. It's a theory, but as my idea that it would be the more accurate and the most fair way of valuing an individual's contribution to a large language model. Because right now, just saying, okay, opt in on my catalog and give me some royalty that I don't know how to control or negotiate. I'm not involved in negotiating. I don't know, what advances were taken out from the parties that did the negotiations. I'm not a party to those advances, which often happens. There's lots of different factors. So this is the only way to feel, at least as a creator, if my music is being sucked up into a large language model, when that model goes to output some music that was generated by a prompt, all these factors are going to be taken into account at the time of the transaction. That will give me the most fair royalty.
Well,
and as my career changes or evolves, so does my value, and so does the outputs.
Something that I can't wrap my head around yet, but I know it's going to be an issue, and maybe this is a solution to that, is, let's say that tomorrow somebody flips a switch and now it's kosher for everybody to use AI music. And so let's say you're using Suno and you create something, and the data could be from 10 other sources, or could be from 10,000 sources. Who knows? It's situationally derived as to how much data and where it comes from, and then assembled. And just so everybody knows, if you're not really following AI music, it doesn't sample anything. It's looking at data points, and it's looking for patterns, and it's using those to create something new based on those patterns, not unlike musicians who are influenced by Chuck Berry or the Beatles or whatever. All musicians are influenced by those who came before them. This is a robotic way, I guess, of organizing those data points of influence. So now, ultimately, let's say that right now there are 5 million tracks out there. I'm just pulling numbers out of thin air that are created by AI. future AI scrapes, data scrapes, will be scraping from stuff that was created with AI. So it becomes cumulative over time. So at some point, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, everything could be, it's almost like a form of digital inbreeding. And that
Yes, it'll be a
blows
part
my,
of the. It's going to be a part of the DNA. Um, AI is going to be a part of the DNA of all music, even human created music. How would it be a part of human created music? Is because just like human created music today, we're influenced by other human created music. So the artists of tomorrow, right? My 10-year-old niece, for example, in 10 years, if she becomes a singer, songwriter, she's going to be influenced by the music that she hears, just like every artist has been influenced by the music that they hear. Um, these younger artists may not care that the music that they're hearing is AI. It's still going to influence them,
right.
like any music would influence them. So that is AI generated music influencing humans, and potentially a style or a hook, or even we're going to get to a point where humans will be sampling AI created music, and the sample insertion would have to reflect that AI generated music on the split sheet. The moment you sample an AI track, it has to be represented in the split, And the question is, who gets the share? And I've had this. I actually wrote a piece about this in 2018 when SACIM temporarily allowed for AI systems to be named as an author of a song, and I thought that was alarming because technology cannot be authors under copyright law. Only humans can be authors. But when we start to sample AI music in the future, like say in the hip hop world, hip hop samples things all the time. You get a nice beat that comes out of Suno or Udio, and some 17-year-old kid from St. Louis decides to rap over it and put that out on YouTube. And then someone else takes that sample and makes a dance version of it. Now we have a sample mixed into this whole production. We have to follow the trail. This is why infinite licensing is going to be the most accurate way of being able to track these stuff down.
That's exactly why I asked that question.
It's too complicated.
You're the first
Infinite
person
licensing
that I've
takes
ever
a massive
heard.
amount. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm enthusiastic. I'm proud of you for coming up with that. But you're the first person I've ever heard that has made sense of what the future could look like, considering that scenario where eventually there's going to be so much AI music out there that human music will indeed be influenced, and there's going to be almost like a logarithmic.
It's going to be exponential because
exactly.
it's in the DNA, right? It's going to be the DNA, and then the deep DNA, which is like the DNA of DNA, right? It's going to be multiple levels of it, and the question is, how do you keep up? At what point do you no longer attribute the contributions of real humans to the outputs of the music? At what point do we make the decision, okay, that's enough? And the question is, who makes the decision? Oftentimes, when these decisions are made in these licensing models, there's no artist involved. They're made by major companies who think about their catalogs and their advances and their equity. It's not made by music creators and composers and songwriters. They don't have a seat at the table to negotiate these deals. These deals are created behind NDAs. They're syndicated throughout the music industry. It becomes the norm, and only those that were in the room at the time really understands the true impact of that deal in the future. So this is something I've been following for a long time. I used to represent in startup companies and help them get licenses for their sandbox ideas. And I used to sit down and schedule the meetings with major publishers and labels and independents. And these conversations were kind of the same. We want to let you use our music, and we need some equity, and we need to advance, and But the individual artists, songwriters are not involved in these conversations. So right now, as we're starting to see AI platforms entering into licenses, we're not going to really understand the impact of these deals right now because there's just not enough volume of the impact. There are more independent artists than there are major artists. And if those independent artists' music is being sucked up into these LMM models and they're not involved in negotiating these licensing deals, then it's not in their best interest. It may not be in their best interest.
Man, you
It
just
often never
nailed
is.
that one. Yeah, that's the problem. Is you're right. There are more independent artists, and you know me. I'm having the job that I've had for almost 34 years now. I love indie artists. That's what I do, and they put food on the table for my family. It's been my entire life, adult life. But they don't have a seat at the table. And so the major labels and these mega corporations are going to cut these deals, and the people who represent the majority are not even going to be heard. And I don't have a good way to fix that. But it sounds like you're
Yeah, I
smart
mean,
enough
that's
to figure
always
that
that's
out.
always been the case. Well, I don't see that being fixed anytime soon. Um, it's always been the case that when major licensing deals are done that become paradigm shifts in the music industry, they're done at the top, right? And they trickle down eventually to the independents, and then to the self-release artists. But it takes years. I remember when I built Tune Registry, and I was working with HFA to help get independent artists to directly affiliate with HFA so they can get licensing deals for Meta and Oculus and Instagram, because they weren't able to do it before because they couldn't join HFA, only publishers. So it was something that was almost 10 years ago, that I really pushed to get independent artists to be their own publisher in the U.S. and represented as such, not just saying so in a theoretical way that you're a publisher because you don't have a publisher, but you're a publisher and you have the rights of a publisher, and here's the tools to exert your rights and your entitlements.
Did your parents know you were freakishly smart when you were like 3 years old? Where did you learn all this stuff? I mean, did you go to does MIT have a music school?
No. I have a master's degree in music industry administration, but I had been working with songwriters and artists and managed my own label and publishing company since I was in my early 20s. So I was an aspiring artist myself, and that's why I went to Los Angeles over 22 years ago, and just sort of pivoted to the management side in college at UCLA, and sort of stayed on this artist representation side ever since. And over time, sort of grew a curiosity in how the business worked, and wanted to look into all these sort of the loopholes and the dark, the black boxes and all the issues in the industry. That was my focus. I was trying to understand some of the issues around rights and royalty and remuneration.
Do you know a guy named Jim Griffin?
Yes, I think I do.
I would love to put the two of you in a room together. You will become brothers. I think I met Jim probably 25 years ago. He was the head of a very informal, kind of a brainstorming group that would meet on Saturdays at Pho. It's technically pronounced Pho, PHO restaurants here in LA. And I would go to those things. I always felt like the dumbest guy in the room, but I figured if I hung out there enough, I'd become smarter than I was. And got to know Jim and got to know many of the other people in the group. And having known those people, and I've been on panels with some of the smartest guys in the rooms over the years, you, my friend, take the cake. I am so
I know Jim, and he started the Pho list. I remember.
Yeah, I was on that from almost the very beginning. And man, if the two of you were in the same room together and people just brought you food like a week, the world could be changed, because you guys, your brains, at least from my perspective, my opinion, your brains work similarly, and I think he is of similar intellect. Wow. Well, I've got to tell you, first of all, I am officially in love with the MLC, as I think all the people in our chat room are. I want to bring you back to just do Q&A, because we went long enough that I couldn't open up the floor to Q&A, but I think a lot of people will have questions for you. And I would like to stay in touch and bring you back to the show every now and then, and definitely the Road Rally. Just pencil in like the first weekend in November. Just put it in your book, and I'll coordinate with Kayla. But I've got to get, like, I would love to get you on stage with Jim Griffin and a couple other people that I think would be a really good match. And let's have this discussion, because not enough people are talking at this level and in depth about issues like that. Instead, people are like worried, is AI going to steal my job? And it's a legitimate worry, but there got to be ways to make it a win for everybody. So I think by getting really smart people in a room like yourself, more stuff will be discovered that does make it a win for everybody. And with that, again, I want to thank you.
Well, keep me posted.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you were more than I bargained for in the best possible way. I'm so glad that we had you on the show today. I think
Well, thank you for having me.
People in the chat room saying, yeah, great info, great vision for the future, impressed, definitely joining the MLC. I saw that from a lot of people today. Home run. Great info tonight. Definitely need to join. It's free. All right. I will have you back. Thank you so much. I know you've got an incredibly busy schedule and you're on the road and all that. So thanks.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is great.
Our pleasure. The honor was all ours to have you here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dae Bogan.